So, hello, welcome Divyam, you back. So last video we have understood each and every terms that was written in the view. Now in second part of that view part, I will write the whole test view.php page again, so we get the better idea how we did things. So for that, let me change some things. Yeah, now it's nice. So we know that why we are using view. We are using view so that, okay, yes, we are using view because we don't want to see the whole clumsy data. We only want to see the few details till which are common. And now if we are interested in knowing more, then we will click view, and then by clicking view, this whole data should come. So let's see the process to do this. So for that we have simply called an anchor tag in the table data tag, and this anchor tag we have linked test view.php. Okay, now and what it have, it contains nothing, it will only display test view. So let's see that our connection is successful or not. So we will click on any of the view, and wait a minute, I have not saved it, neither I have saved this. Now let's go back, one more back, do refresh and open test.display and click on the view. Yes, the connection, the page has been linked successfully. Now other thing is that the purpose of the view is to display data, right? Whose data? The ID on which we click, then the whole data should get displayed. And for doing that, we know for retrieving data we use select query. So we should move to that step. So the step one is to do connection. Okay, so for that we will include our dbcon.php, and what it does, let me explain you one more time what dbcon does. This dbcon connect our system to our database which is created in phpMyAdmin. So our system is localhost, username is root, we have not set any password, and the cert is the name of the database. It simply does connection. Let's come back. Now the connection is still not completed. No, the connection is successful. Okay, now we will do our as usual part. We will write a select query for this. Okay, we all know select every, fetch every data, select data from our table name is test, and where let's say we want data of id number 2. Okay, now what we will do, we will store this query in any variable, say data retriever, you know. We don't want any complication. So retriever, no internet, fuck. So we were doing all this stuff with our internet, oh my god. Because of cache and all. Control C. Ah, cute puppies. So guys, please switch on the net. Before without that we cannot do. Okay, we have stored it in a variable retriever. No, it sounds cool. Okay, and this semicolon here, semicolon here. So this retriever, what this retriever will do, this retriever is simply storing the data whatever will come from this query. Okay, now we will make one more variable which will simply do that all our part. So what I will say, relate we will name it performer. Okay, and what performance doing, performer, it's simply MySQL I, this thing we have done many times. Okay, query, what it will do, it will say okay, do the connection part. Okay, now after connecting that database cert, now what you have to do, you have to go to don't we go to this retriever and say and do whatever this query is saying. This query is saying from table test. Let me show you. See, table name is test. Okay. So from test, do whatever this query is doing, means retrieve data of ID number 2. This is the job of MySQL query. Okay. After that, this thing is done. Now our ID will get. Now the connection and the calling part has been done. Now what we will do? Let's name it query. Now what we will do? We will run a function so that our data gets displayed, and for that we use this MySQL fetch array. Okay, we write this function and it will simply store this performer part. So this MySQL fetch array will fetch the data whatever comes and get stored in $performer, and in $performer this whole thing is done. Means in $performer what is done, $performer has been successfully went to the CURT database and it has found the test table. In that test table it has fetched out the data whose ID is 2. This is $performer doing, and what $query is doing with the help of $SQL fetch array, whatever this has stored using MySQL query function, it has stored that data, but it has fetched all the information which is stored in it. And what we will simply do to see it, we will use combination of echo and pre for testing that our data is coming or not, or there is some error. If there will be some error, it will tell us. So $query. Okay, now all this thing is done, and now we should run. So whenever we will click view, we should get displayed. What is this? Test view. Okay, there's both things. Let me call display file local host card test display. Let it keep here. We should cut it, go back. Okay, now whenever we will click view, any of the view, we will get the information of ID number 2. See, we have clicked on ID number 1 but got that all the information about ID number 2. Let me go back. Let me click on ID number 4. We are getting this ID number 2. So the point is that till now we are able to retrieve the information of ID number 2. Now this is the static part. Now we have to make it dynamic. By this I mean that on whose ID you click. For example, we click on the ID number 3, then whole information of ID number 3 should get displayed. Like here it is displaying the information of ID number 2. See, complete information after phone. We are getting complete information, college, gender, qualification. So now we have to do this dynamic part so that we get the data of any row whose ID we click. For that we have to do something like if we click the view there, the ID should get stored, and by somehow we should call that ID, and instead of 2 we should that ID should get here, and then it will do its job. So for that we will do something for here to get the ID of what we are clicking. We will simply write this thing question mark ID and this equals to, and we have already written this PHP part which is capable of calling the ID. So on whose ID we will click, this part will select that ID, will display that ID, and then that displayed ID will come here. Okay, so on the ID we click, so this thing will get converted into that ID number. For example, if we click on ID number 3, I am not clicking. If we click on ID number 3, then this thing will give output 3, and that 3 will come here and it will look like this in the URL. Okay, 3. Now let me do that back. Control S, save it. Now this part has done. Okay, now we are able to store, we will get the ID of what we click. Now next thing we need to do it here. So we are getting ID. So by using get method, we will store that ID in another variable, let's say enrollment. Okay, and what we will do by using get method in capital, remember it's in capital. Okay, the whatever the ID which will get stored there, by using get method we have called that ID here, and that ID we have stored in $enr in the variable enr. Now instead of 2, oh wait a minute, this is semicolon. Now instead of 2 equals to, we can call whatever ID comes there, and whatever by using get method it's getting stored in the variable enr. Now that enr should come here. Okay, so it's become a more like dynamic. You are getting, I'm not clicking, I'm just saying that if I click the view, then ID number 4 will come here and it will get into this ID, and by using get method we will get information of that ID we have stored in the variable enr, and now we have displayed that particular variable enr here. So now select variable display the information about that enr. But let us do some checking part. Let's check that in display also. Now we check in insert part, we check now that by doing echo that our data is coming or not. So we will do the similar checking here. What we will do echo space, and we will check that yeah, data is, what is this? Oh, I have not copied. We will check that data is coming here or not. Okay, we will do simple checking data is coming here or not, and let me do save it. And for clear, we be able to see it clear, let me insert a break tag. Okay, now it's save, go here and see I'm clicking on ID number 4. Warning, array ID in the C on line 7. Okay, fatal error. I sort it out. It's interesting to see this. Okay. Oops. Okay. But it's saying that undefined array key ID. On the line number 7. ID is not defined. I think I have not saved this page. Okay, let me save this page again. Save. Now let's go back. I'm back. Do refresh. Click on test display, and now again I'm clicking on ID number 4. See, now it's coming. Only see this part. Yes, it's ID number 4 is coming. Let's do one more thing. Let's click on ID number 1. See, ID number 1 is showing here. Okay, means our data is coming here. So what we will do, we will simply comment what I have done. Simply comment out this, uncomment this, means this is running successfully, data is coming here, and this, and MySQL query is doing, I've told you, is connecting and instructing. Instead of performer, it must be instructor. Okay. And this MySQL fetch array is fetching the information which is stored in the performer array. And one most important thing is this all thing is getting stored in the form of array. And you will ask why? Then I will say because in that insert method we are using post, and post written by array. I will check this part. Okay, I'm not sure, but it's a good question. So it's told us, I don't remember, but it's fine. Okay, now everything is good and good to go. No need to this because we will print it into tables. So the display thing which we used to do before, like making a while loop here and making a TD before that we need to make a table named it. So whole the display thing will come here, because view is what? View is the subset of display. No, I think say that display is the subset of view. View is the superset because all column is here. So I will not make again that table. I will simply show you how we can do. First, before that, let's comment out this. Now see what will happen. We will make one HTML page, each and everything. Then we will call TD. But here, let me. I will fetch only one column. Okay. What I will do? I will again start PHP part, because PHP done. I have called the PHP part, and what I will do? I will simply say, "Yeah, bro, echo, please give me the query data which is stored in the query array at the index, let's say name." Okay, now it's done. Let me do save it. No, bro, going here, doing whole thing differently. Okay, display. I want to display name of Elon, superstar, genius. See, it's successful. It's displaying Elon. And why displaying? It's displaying because I am echoing the value which is stored in the query array at the index name. Now it has become dynamic as well. Let's go back. Now I want to see the name of the new single guy in the town. Bill. Yeah, most eligible bachelor, right? So our job is done. Now the other thing which is as a homework is that store this value in a table, and that can be easily done in the while as we were doing this. So briefly I will repeat all again that in the view we made a file test2.php, then in PHP we created that new file and did dbcon connection, and after that we wrote a simple select query for id number 2, and we did this performer retriever, all the connection type of thing, and we fetched all information in query. Then after that we thought that no, it's a static, it's only displaying the information of id number 2. So by some mean we should do something like that. On the id we click, it should display information of that id, and for that this is okay. One part is left. As you know, we have used the get method, and the limitation of get method is that the data which gets inserted is displayed in URL. For example, if I click on this id number 2, you see id number 2 is being displayed, and this is the URL part only. See, this is exactly the same thing we have written here. Oh bro, come on yaar. See, okay, for easy understanding. Yes, now it has come in same line. You see, test view PHP question mark id. This we have written equals to. After this equals to, we have wrote the simple PHP statement which will give the id on which we have clicked. See, exactly same thing which is on the line number 35. So by doing this, we have gave the information and the get display that here. Now as I was explaining, so by doing this, the exactly id numbers comes here. When this id comes here, by using the get method, we have got that id information, id number we have stored in the variable enr. Now instead of id number 2, we wrote that variable enr, and that now everything exactly after that everything is same. Now using the while loop, we can display the whole thing in a table. Now this we can do it everywhere to make our table look elegant. Okay, bye. And I wrote some things in my copies also, okay, by using today's date, so you can check for anything. I can, it's for me only na, so for that I can match data from there. Okay, bye.